Hello, everyone. I thought I'd do a little something on forgiveness. In the Gene Keys profile, that is my purpose in life. I carry that Gene Key in my deep purpose. And for those of you fairly new to the Gene Keys, that is related to the position of the Earth when you were in your mother's womb at 88 days. And so, in other words, it's something, Earth is about embodiment. So, whatever gene key you have there is something that you have to embody, is something that you have to. Funny word that, isn't it? I'm very aware of my words these days. It's a choice, it's not you have to. But the choice is to embody that forgiveness and bring it into the world. Yeah. So what is forgiveness? What is that? Well, forgiveness, from my point of view, is not anything that we do. It's not something that we actually, actually have to do forgiveness, right? So forgiveness is really basically your heart opening more. Your heart just opens more to the greater self that you are. And you see things in a much bigger perspective. You see things from the soul perspective, or your personality opens up to this, deeper dimension to see something, to see in a way that you didn't see before. So that is what really forgiveness is. Forgiveness is the ability to see in a deeper way, in a bigger way, in a much bigger way. And the amazing thing about forgiveness is that it's like grace. It's always there. It's not like it's not there. Forgiveness is always there. It's our self. It's our soul. Our soul lives in the space of forgiveness, of understanding. So forgiveness has a strong relationship to understanding the bigger picture. So recently, I just had a very interesting experience around that, and I thought I'd share it, because it's so interesting when you watch things in your life, when you bring presence to things, that is the key, really. Forgiveness is again, a form of presence, right? So some of you have just logged on, so I thought I'd reiterate what forgiveness is. So forgiveness is your heart opening more to who you truly are. You're expanding and seeing more than you've seen before. That's all really forgiveness is. You have a much better understanding of why things happen a certain way, why they had to happen that way. That's why I say forgiveness is always there. Grace is always there. It's built into us, So when we deeply accept that, it's like the personality can take a back seat, So something happened just recently, it's like I was sending a message to a friend, and the friend wrote back and said, "Oh, you made a mistake," and immediately I felt shame. I felt like, oh my God, and especially it's someone I admire, a friend of mine that I admire, and probably I put him on a pedestal, and I noticed, I felt shame. Oh, I made a mistake, and it was really interesting, and how uncomfortable that is when we make a mistake, what we perceive of as a mistake, and it just took me on this deep contemplation on forgiveness, and I saw that forgiveness is this ability to see bigger than what's actually happening in the moment, So when we have this understanding that our soul is always in the field of forgiveness, is always in the field of love for our personalities, then we can start to relax with the personality much more. So relaxation is a real key with this, but not as a pressure, not like, oh, I have to be relaxed. No, it's not like that. It's more like, so in my example, let me give you my example. So I noticed this shame, I made a mistake, I noticed the self-judgment, I noticed these things, and I just thought, wow, that's really an uncomfortable feeling, that shame is uncomfortable, and it just made me feel so compassionate for other human beings, because because we all feel that, you know, we all feel that when we make a mistake, or maybe not all of us, I'm just assuming that many people feel that, you know, when they make a mistake or a perceived mistake, right? So the personality like feels that shame, you know, and it's like, where does that come from? You know, it's like, obviously that is built into the genetics, you know, it's built into our DNA. It's like, you know, our ancestors have carried shame, you know, for a long, long time. And this is where this idea of mistakes comes from, you know. So, so when you understand that our personality is going to feel these things, you know, it's going to feel shame, it's going to feel like it made a mistake, it's going to feel like it's not good enough, you know, all of these things. This is, I mean, I've been on this path for many, many years, and I still feel shame, you know. What's interesting, my experience of it these days is with much more compassion for myself, you know, and and I can see how the personality, how my personality, like is really uncomfortable with those feelings, you know. And so this is what prompted this post. Sorry, I'm shaking as I'm on my bed here. Sorry about that. I just realized the camera is shaking when I laugh. So now I'm having a different experience. I don't feel shame. I'm sort of laughing at the fact. So maybe I put my laptop down, and maybe I won't shout so much. Yeah. And behind me, you can see a little picture of me as a young boy. I'm actually staying at my mother's house right now, taking care of her. She's not so well, so I'm here, and I'm giving my brother a break because he's been on long mother care duty. So now I'm giving him a bit of a break. So hi, Lisa. Hey, I just saw your hello. Yeah. So this idea of forgiveness, you know, it's always there. That's the first thing I want to say. It's always inside of us. And when we realize that, you know, it's like, I don't know if I can put across what I'm feeling about forgiveness. It's always there. So when we just acknowledge that, you know, that it's always there, that our soul lives in that space of forgiveness, it lives in that space of acceptance, it lives in that space of understanding, then we can have a so much more relaxed relationship to these triggers, you know. So in my case, you know, I felt shame, you know, I felt like, oh, I made a mistake, you know. And it was so interesting, you know, it was just so interesting to have that experience and to see how quickly I could drop into that place of forgiveness within myself. And also to see how uncomfortable I felt, you know. And so, as I said, it gave me a lot of compassion for people, you know, a lot more compassion. And so I guess I'm posting this just because I want everyone to sort of understand that it's okay with how the personality is, you know, with how the personality communicates or speaks or interacts. And I was sharing with a friend of mine, Alexandra Cousins, Alexandra and Gary, her husband, actually, on a call yesterday. I think it was yesterday. And I was saying how in my experience, you know, the personality doesn't really change. You know, it's like it doesn't really change over years and years and years. The only thing that I notice is that we become much more gentle with it. We become much more relaxed with it. We stop obsessing about it, you know, and we realize that who we truly are is so much greater than it in some way, you know. And yet at the same time, we need that personality to express, to communicate, and to learn, you know. So it's precious, you know. Our personalities are precious. They're not these things that we have to fight with, but we do have to acknowledge that there's many games that go on with the personality. So for example, let's just use that example of me, right? You know, so I made a mistake, and then I felt maybe guilt, maybe some shame. Definitely a lot of shame came up, you know. And it was such a simple thing, you know. I misspelled someone's name, you know. I misspelled a name wrong, you know. And I felt this, you know, this shame in that moment, you know. And I thought, wow, how interesting, you know, how interesting. So it led me on a deep contemplation on forgiveness, and so hence this live video. So yeah, as I was saying to Alexandra and Gary, you know, our personalities don't really change. You know, they really stay pretty consistent most of our life. You know, and the only thing that really changes, as far as I can see, is that we become a lot more detached. You know, and so recently in my OFT courses, I've been talking about this in relationship to the breath. So our breath, you know, we allow it to move in and we allow it to move out, and we don't really hold on to it, you know. We don't really hold on to it in the same way that we hold on to our personality. And this is really important to understand because um, our personality is just like the breath. It's precious. Why is it precious? Because it's the medium, it's the tool that our souls use to become aware of themselves and to become aware of their connection to the source. You know, so that connection to forgiveness, that connection to love. So basically, what I want to try and transmit with this is that we can relax. You know, we don't have to be in a hurry. We can really, really relax. Okay, and this is the crazy thing that I've noticed is that the more that we relax, the more we trust our souls, the more we speed up our evolution. Yeah, so it's like a paradox. The more we relax, the more we trust our souls, the more we speed up our evolution. The more we stress, the more we try and understand. You know, so if I imagine I have this experience of shame from, you know, writing this email to a friend of mine, and imagine I just indulged that, you know, and I went, oh my God, where's this come from? Is this from my ancestors? Oh my God, there's something wrong with me. I've got to fix it. I've got to do this. I've got to do that, you know. And this is the personality's game, you know. It wants to try and fix itself, you know. And what I see is you can't fix it because you're born with it. You know, it's like the breath. You know, it's essential, but at the same time, it's what they call in human design the Maya. You know, it's like the illusion. You know, so we get identified with the surface of ourselves. So that's another definition for forgiveness. Forgiveness is recognizing your depth. Yeah, that's what forgiveness is. You know, is recognizing that there's so much more to you than these triggers. Yeah, forgiveness is recognizing your depth. You know, the depth of your soul. You know, and you know, I do so many, you know, consultations with people. You know, I've been doing a lot recently, and what I see over and over again is people's beauty, their depth, their compassion. It's so obvious to me that that's there, you know, and we're all so beautiful, you know. We're all so unique, you know. This is what the gene keys really bring us, you know. So some of you missed the beginning, but forgiveness is my purpose, my soul's purpose in life. So if you look at the Gene Keys profile, right at the bottom, you see purpose. You see the soul's purpose. And this is based on the position of the earth, you know, when you were in your mother's womb at 88 days, basically. And so I have their intolerance, you know, understanding and forgiveness. And when you look at that, because it's related to the earth, it's not related to the sun, it's related to the earth. My understanding of that gene key is that that's something that your soul has decided to embody. That's something that your soul has decided to grow into and to ground, because it's related to the earth. You're meant to ground that into your life. And if you listen to a lot of my personality's talks on these things, you know, a lot of it is about this idea of forgiveness. It's about seeing and understanding at a much deeper level, like who we truly are, you know. So for me, that's another aspect of forgiveness, is recognizing who we truly, truly are, you know. And so, you know, I know many of you are involved in paths, you know, on a path, you know, and many of you are, you know, using maybe the gene keys, or you might be using food, or you might be using a meditation path, you know, and all of these things. And I just encourage you, just based on years and years of experience of exploring this myself, is to be very aware of of how you're approaching that path, or how you're approaching that particular tool, because all of these things are tools. They're not truth, right? The Gene Keys is a tool, right? Astrology is a tool. Yoga is a tool. They're ways. They're not truth, right? Truth is who we are, right? So this is a fundamental thing to understand, and I'm going to be going into this on the retreats that I'm going to be doing this year in Bali, about the right use of will, applying our will in the right way. And I would say that's fundamental, is seeing truthfully who we are, and who we are is a mystery ultimately. Ultimately we're here to figure out life, for us, because every one of us has a unique, soul pattern and a unique ancestral influence. And so, it's always going to be the same teaching. Forgiveness is always the same, which is, forgiveness is the understanding that our heart can open more and more and more, right? Forgiveness is the understanding that our heart can continue to open, And what is an open heart? An open heart is presence. It's the ability to be gentle with oneself. It's the ability to not take the personality so seriously, and not to worry too much about it. That for me is an open heart, right? And open heart is about being honest with yourself and honest with others. And an open heart is a sweetness, a sweetness with ourselves and with others, And so often, we feel these feelings, and we get so serious with them, and we constrict around them, So forgiveness is also a softening, it's a softening around the personality, and recognizing that, yes, it is carrying patterns. It is carrying patterns, ancestral patterns and soul patterns that our soul has taken on, consciously, and has said, we're going to resolve these, we're going to grow through these patterns, So this is the right use of will, is apply, and the use of forgiveness is using our understanding to be really compassionate and gentle with ourselves. There is no rush. There is no hurry. Of course, when you're suffering with really, difficult physical symptoms, then of course there tends to be this deep need inside to speed up that process. But my experience is that any pressure we put on ourselves to do that is counterproductive, So on all of my courses, I do a lot of this, relaxation, like what I call no harm, no guilt, no blame, no shame, So I'm always trying to create that in everything that I say, and in the space that I hold for classes. And I've done a few surveys in my courses, and I've said, how many of you gone to a course, or you've gone to, or you've read something in a book, and you start to feel guilty that you're not living up to it? And virtually everyone puts their hands up, So and it's okay, that again is just part of what it is to be human, So I think that's all I really want to say about forgiveness, but it's a huge topic. So let's just reiterate it again, and then if anyone has any questions, we can open it up. So forgiveness is our heart opening more, and it can always open more, and we don't have to force that. You don't have to force an open heart. It's not something you can actually do. It's just you have to bring presence to these patterns that come up as we heal. As we heal, things are going to come into awareness, like this experience with me, like writing an email and realizing I made a mistake, and feeling this shame, So these patterns come up, and in those moments, it's how we can be self-loving towards that, you know, like how we can bring presence to that. It's not even a question of love, it's just like aware. Oh, I feel that right now, you know, I have this feeling right now, and just being with it and seeing that it's not truth, you know. So forgiveness is the ability to see that everything that our personality goes through is not really truth, you know. It's just part of our journey, you know. So let's widen our definition of forgiveness to see that we're on a journey, you know. We're on a journey and we never get it done, you know. That there's no destination, you know. So imagine applying that understanding to whatever path you're on. You know, say you're on you're really working with detoxification, right? So oftentimes we bring into that a feeling of I've got to get it done, you know. And of course that's true on one level, right? You want to feel better. I'm not denying that need, but what I've seen is that we never get it done. There's always something else, you know. There's always, our souls are always expanding, you know, and wanting to take on the next, you know, development process, you know. So we never get it done, you know. So when you really let that in, you know, this is forgiveness as well, is realizing we don't get it done, you know. We're on a journey of completion. We keep completing. And I've talked about this before, you know, even when you become enlightened, you're still evolving, you know, and you can easily confirm this for yourself. I use the example of Adyashanti, you know. He's such a great soul, you know, and so wise, you know. When you listen to him, he's incredibly wise, but he's evolving, you know. He hasn't stopped evolving just because he got enlightened. Look at his videos 5 years ago or 6 years ago. I think he got enlightened about 10 years ago, you know. He's continually evolving. So we never get it done, you know, and life is always evolving, and we need to be much more gentle, you know, with ourselves, and bring more presence. So this is why I teach Qigong. Because Qigong is very body orientated, you know, and it's flowing. It's not forcing, it's flowing. And I'm in the process actually of making a Wuji Gong introductory video for all the attendees who are going to come to the retreat in Bali on inner sexual alchemy. So I'm going to be going into the mountains and make a beautiful video, so that before you come to the retreat in Bali, you've learned that form. It's an amazing form, and I'll probably do another Facebook Live on that. So does anyone have any questions? This idea of forgiveness, what is forgiveness? I have a lot of people here. What do you think about family constellations to help with forgiveness and opening our hearts and knowing the truth of who we are? Yeah, I mean, family constellations is an incredible tool. I know a lot of family constellation therapists, and I'm a great fan, great believer. I use it a lot in my counseling work. I think it's amazing. I don't think you need a whole group to do it. I think you can do it yourself, you know, and it's just about, in fact, I'll be leading people through that process in Bali, you know, with the bone breathing practice, because bones resonate with the ancestors. So you can do great work with, you know, becoming conscious of your bones, opening up to your soul's love, and really using the inner smile to smile into our Mother Earth and recognize that all our ancestors' ashes and bones are in that field, you know, in that memory, in that field. And some of the work that I do in my counseling is I encourage people to make a connection to their ancestors, and to just let them know that you're aware of them. You know, this is why I think family constellation is so powerful, is because it makes people aware that there's so much more to them than just right now, and so their ancestors are living in them right now. So one of the things that you're going to notice as you heal yourself is that your family heals as well. And I've seen that with my own family. You know, as I've become more loving, more kind to myself, then my mother's transformed, my brother's transformed, and I do a lot of work. Work is the wrong word. I do a lot of smiling and loving into my ancestral line, you know, sending forgiveness back in time in a way. That's another understanding about forgiveness, is that forgiveness, even though it looks like it moves through time, please remember this, really important, this one. Even though forgiveness looks like it's moving through time, forgiveness is in the space of timelessness. It's always there. It's part of our soul. It's part of the source's energy of, you know, that there is no need for forgiveness from the source's point of view, because we're all emanations of that source. So it's a paradox, you know, once we start approaching the timeless realm of our soul, all of these questions become almost irrelevant. This is why I encourage so much this identification with the soul, because when we start to identify with the soul, we automatically start to heal ancestral issues, because that is the number one issue affecting all human souls, is this disconnection from the source, you know. So when you take a stand for that, when you take a real stand and you say, I live in the field of forgiveness, I have an immortal soul and I stand for that, you know, that is truth. You know, when you stand for that, that immediately has an effect on all the ancestral issues, you know, just immediately. And then the other thing that I encourage is just like making prayers to the ancestors, saying, look, I'm very aware of you. I'm really aware, you know, and I will get to your issues in my own time. This is really important in my experience. You know, I'm really aware, and I love you, and I know there's lots of issues you want me to resolve for you, but I will get there when I'm, you know, when I'm ready, because you know, you have to be grounded and really, and that I find is very peaceful. It's what I call ancestral peace. You know, you start to create peace at the ancestral line once you're aware of them. So in answer to your question, Lisa, I'm a great fan of family constellations, but I do believe we can also do it within ourselves, you know, because we are the constellation in a way. We hold all of them within ourselves. It's just good to see it on the outside. A lot of times the personality, again, can get very caught up in that, you know. So you have to be a little bit careful, you know. But as long as you have that soul awareness, then in my experience, that's the key, you know, where your will is applied, you know. So I hope that's clarifying for you. Any others? To forgive, isn't that to love? Without love, it's difficult to forgive. I'm a philosophical there. Sorry. Oh, God, no, it's the same. Forgiveness and love for me are the same. They're just different aspects of grace, you know, of the grace of our greater self, you know. So love and forgiveness, they're like two brothers hand in hand, or two sisters, you know. They're just the same. They're just these different words for our greater self. So I could use the word love as well as forgiveness, you know. What is love, you know? The best definition I ever heard in my life is from one of my teachers, Michael Wynn, Inner Alchemy Master, you know, in my opinion. And his definition of love totally transformed my own experience of it, because we have so many different ideas. So I want to give you that definition. Love is the ability to merge with anything or anyone without losing your center. And that for me is the clearest definition of love I ever heard, you know, and I was so grateful to him, you know, and I think I did a whole post of it on Facebook. So love is the ability to merge with anything or anyone without losing your center. So that for me is a great definition of love. Oftentimes we can have this idea that love is sort of self-sacrifice, or, you know, or giving up ourselves. And for those of you who watch my posts on the will, that's not what we're here to learn, as far as I'm aware. You know, our souls are here to learn the right use of will, how to use our will in the way to bring more and more of our soul into manifestation in this physical form, so that we can complete ourselves, you know. So as I said recently, it's all about integrating spirit and matter. So you could see the personality as more like the matter part, and our soul more like the spirit part, you know. So we have to integrate the two, you know. And so that is an act of love. When we integrate those two things, that, in my experience, is an act of self-love, right? Self-love, right? So this whole universe loves itself. It loves its creation. You know, the source loves what it's created, you know. And at the same time, you know, we are a whole universe, so we have to love everything that we've created as well. So this is my understanding of that. So I hope that brings you some clarity. And Kun, thank you so much for all your work in Denmark, for sharing with Qigong. I know you've been very, very active in that. So I'm sure the Tao Immortals are blessing you for sharing that with so many people. Thank you. I hope that answered your question. Let's see if there's any other questions. Hello, Andrew. Long time since we last talked. Yeah, great. Okay, great. It's so nice being able to speak to everyone on Facebook Live. I really enjoy it. So unless there's any other questions, I will close this one, but it will be available on a replay.